Have you ever caught yourself believing something you later realized was completely false? Something your own mind convinced you was true? According to Carl Jung, your mind constantly plays tricks on you, crafting illusions that shape your entire reality. But why? Carl Jung, one of the most profound and influential psychologists of all time, believed deeply in the complexity of the human mind. He wasn't just interested in what we consciously think or feel. He explored the hidden, unconscious parts of our minds that we rarely acknowledge. Jung famously called this hidden dimension the shadow. So what exactly is this mysterious shadow? Think of your mind as an iceberg. The small visible tip represents your conscious self, while the massive hidden portion beneath the surface symbolizes your unconscious, the shadow. The shadow contains everything you don't want to admit about yourself. Your insecurities, fears, darker impulses, desires, and vulnerabilities. Jung saw clearly that the shadow is the core source of our deepest self-deceptions. Your mind is incredibly skilled at deception, but it's not malicious, it's protective. According to Jung, self-deception occurs because your ego, the you identify with, wants to maintain its self-image at all costs. Facing the uncomfortable truths about yourself threatens your ego, so your mind creates illusions to avoid discomfort. For instance, have you ever justified procrastinating by telling yourself you're just waiting for the perfect moment? That's your shadow at work. Jung argued that our shadow doesn't just deceive us occasionally, it actively shapes our entire perception of reality. Everything you believe about yourself, others, and the world around you is filtered through the lens of your hidden self. Your shadow decides what truths you accept and what uncomfortable realities you deny. Imagine this. Your mind is a movie director, editing the footage of your daily life. But instead of editing for accuracy, it's editing for comfort. It removes uncomfortable scenes, highlights convenient narratives, and maintains a coherent but often misleading story about your identity. Here's a common example. Imagine you get angry when someone points out your mistakes. Instead of facing the truth that you're insecure about your abilities, you convince yourself they're being unfair or jealous. Or maybe you constantly compare yourself to others, never feeling good enough, yet you tell yourself it's simply motivation for improvement. These are classic shadow maneuvers, ways your hidden self maintains control. But why does your mind work so hard to hide this shadow self? Jung believed that acknowledging these uncomfortable truths is emotionally painful and psychologically threatening. The ego perceives the shadow as a threat to your identity and self-worth, so it buries these truths deep beneath layers of rationalization and denial. As Jung famously said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. So the question becomes, how exactly does your shadow operate day to day? One of Jung's most powerful explanations involves something called projection, where your hidden traits appear vividly in others, leading you to criticize or dislike them, rather than yourself. Projection is your mind's favorite method of deception, and understanding it is crucial. In the next part of this video, we'll dive deep into the fascinating psychology of projection and how your shadow shapes your relationships, your judgments, and ultimately your life. Remember Jung's powerful insight. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Have you ever found yourself intensely irritated by someone's behavior, only to realize later that you do exactly the same thing? According to Carl Jung, this isn't mere coincidence. It's your mind's favorite trick, projection. Carl Jung described projection as the unconscious act of attributing your hidden, unwanted traits onto others. It's the shadow's clever tactic for keeping you unaware of your own flaws and uncomfortable truths. Simply put, what bothers you in others often mirrors what you subconsciously dislike in yourself. Imagine your shadow as a film projector. Rather than facing its own unpleasant truths, it casts those truths outward onto the world. You see your insecurities, fears, and negative traits vividly in other people, situations, or groups, never realizing these projections originate from within. Let's consider a relatable example. Maybe you've experienced intense annoyance at someone who you perceive as overly arrogant or attention-seeking. On closer inspection, you might realize these feelings come from your own suppressed desire for attention or validation. Or perhaps you're quick to judge a coworker for being lazy, but secretly fear that you're not working as hard as you could. These reactions feel justified because they're directed outward, away from your awareness. According to Jung, the stronger your reaction to someone else's traits, the deeper and more personal your hidden shadow trait is. Projection isn't limited to personal relationships. Jung observed that entire societies and groups project their shadows onto others. Consider political divides or nationalistic conflicts. One group labels another as evil, corrupt, or dangerous, while being completely unaware of similar behaviours or impulses within their own ranks. This projection creates and perpetuates conflict, misunderstandings, and division. Jung's insights remind us that until we recognise our projections, we remain trapped in cycles of conflict both personally and collectively. But why does your mind prefer projection over honest self-reflection? Jung explained that acknowledging your shadow directly threatens your ego. The ego desperately wants to preserve a comfortable self-image. Confronting these uncomfortable truths head-on can trigger feelings of shame, anxiety, and vulnerability, emotions your ego tries to avoid at all costs. So instead, your mind cleverly projects these emotions outward, creating a false sense of security. This process allows you to maintain a comfortable illusion. I'm fine, it's everyone else who has issues. So how can you recognise your projections? Jung suggested paying careful attention to your strongest emotional reactions. When you feel especially irritated, judgmental, or angry at someone else, pause and reflect inwardly. What is it about this person that triggers me so strongly? Could this be reflecting something uncomfortable I'm refusing to see in myself? This reflection doesn't just help you understand yourself, it actively helps dissolve those unconscious projections. Projection is powerful, pervasive, and incredibly deceptive. Understanding it can transform your relationships, reduce unnecessary conflicts, and foster genuine self-awareness. But recognizing your projections is only part of the journey. You still might wonder, why exactly does your mind go to such lengths to avoid these truths? In the next part of this video, we'll explore deeper into the existential reasons behind your mind's constant creation of illusions, unraveling exactly why your shadow remains so fiercely hidden. As Jung profoundly said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Have you ever wondered why your mind goes to such incredible lengths to hide uncomfortable truths, crafting elaborate illusions instead? According to Carl Jung, your mind creates these illusions not just to protect your self-esteem, but as a fundamental survival mechanism. Your mind is like an expert storyteller, continually crafting narratives to help you navigate life. Carl Jung argued that these stories, though often inaccurate or distorted, serve a vital purpose. They protect your psyche from overwhelming anxiety, confusion, and existential dread. Consider how unsettling it would be if you were constantly confronted with harsh truths about yourself, others, or the unpredictability of life. Your mind instinctively shields you from this instability by crafting comforting illusions, helping you maintain psychological equilibrium. Jung believed that beyond simple psychological protection, illusions fulfill a deeper existential need. Your mind creates meaning and order out of a reality that is inherently chaotic and uncertain. Without these illusions, your life would feel overwhelmingly arbitrary and frightening. For instance, the illusion of absolute security through wealth, relationships, or power makes life feel manageable. Even though security is ultimately unattainable, your mind insists otherwise, maintaining your sense of control. One of the most compelling illusions your mind creates is your very sense of identity. Jung recognized the ego as a carefully maintained illusion that gives your life coherence and continuity. Your sense of self is essentially a story your mind has crafted to make sense of your experiences and interactions. When this self-image is threatened, your mind immediately crafts illusions to preserve it. For example, when you fail at something, your mind quickly rationalizes the failure to maintain your self-esteem. These small illusions accumulate over time, constructing a resilient yet sometimes misleading sense of identity. Jung emphasized that your illusions aren't just passive fantasies, they actively shape your perceptions and choices. Think of your mind as an editor, selectively highlighting information that aligns with your existing illusions and dismissing contradictory evidence. This editing shapes your beliefs, your emotions, and your reactions to the world around you. Imagine someone convinced that people are generally untrustworthy. They'll notice every act of dishonesty while dismissing countless acts of kindness or honesty. This selective perception reinforces their illusion, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. But illusions, though comforting, come at a cost. They limit your personal growth, create misunderstandings, and often lead to unnecessary suffering. Jung encouraged a courageous exploration of these illusions. He proposed asking yourself, what comforting beliefs might be holding me back? What truths am I refusing to accept? This reflective practice begins to unravel your illusions, fostering genuine self-awareness and authenticity. Understanding why your mind creates illusions is crucial, but recognizing these illusions is only half the battle. Jung believed the next critical step was confronting these uncomfortable truths directly, a process he called individuation. In the next part of this video, we'll explore individuation, uncovering how you can courageously face your hidden truths, integrate your shadow, and live with greater authenticity. Remember Jung's powerful words: who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Have you ever felt that beneath the surface of your daily life, there's a deeper truth waiting to be discovered? Carl Jung believed that the most meaningful journey you'll ever undertake is the one toward genuine self-awareness, a process he called individuation. Individuation, according to Jung, is the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. It's the process of integrating your conscious self with your unconscious mind, especially your shadow, to achieve a complete, authentic sense of self. Unlike merely knowing facts about yourself, individuation involves deep psychological and emotional exploration. Jung saw individuation as essential not only for personal fulfillment, but also for psychological health. Without integrating your shadow and unconscious elements, your mind remains fragmented, often resulting in emotional instability, confusion, and inner conflict. Individuation leads to clarity, emotional balance, and a profound sense of authenticity. Jung identified several stages in the individuation journey: encountering the shadow, acknowledging your hidden, often uncomfortable truths, integrating the shadow, actively facing and accepting these truths to understand and reclaim hidden aspects of yourself, meeting the anima animus, exploring the inner feminine or masculine energies within yourself, recognizing how these influence your identity and relationships, achieving wholeness, self, realizing the integration of your conscious and unconscious selves, bringing harmony and completeness to your identity. Individuation isn't purely theoretical, it involves concrete, actionable steps. Jung encouraged practices such as self-reflection and journaling, regularly documenting your thoughts, dreams, and reactions to gain insight into your unconscious. Dream analysis. Understanding the symbols and messages your unconscious mind communicates through dreams. Mindfulness and meditation. Developing awareness of your thoughts and emotions, fostering greater self-awareness and emotional regulation. Jung recognized individuation as challenging because your ego will naturally resist confronting difficult truths. Facing your shadow involves confronting fears, insecurities, and painful memories. But Jung assured that facing these challenges is not only essential, but profoundly rewarding. Consider it like physical exercise, initially uncomfortable, but ultimately strengthening and transformative. Successfully undergoing individuation can radically improve your life. Benefits include improved emotional intelligence and resilience, enhanced relationships through greater empathy and understanding, increased creativity and authenticity, deeper satisfaction and meaning in life. Understanding individuation is crucial, but how exactly do you start integrating your shadow practically? In the next part of our video, we'll dive deeply into concrete exercises and methods you can use daily to begin this transformative journey. Remember Jung's inspiring insight: the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You've learned about your hidden shadow, understood how projection works, and why your mind creates illusions. But how do you practically face and integrate these truths into your daily life? Carl Jung offered powerful, practical methods to begin this life-changing process. Facing your shadow isn't just theoretical, it's a tangible journey requiring practical action. Carl Jung knew simply knowing about your unconscious wasn't enough. Real transformation demands direct engagement with the hidden parts of yourself. Here are actionable steps Jung recommended for integrating your shadow. Self-reflection and journaling. Dedicate regular, uninterrupted time to reflect honestly on your experiences, feelings, and reactions. Journal daily, focusing particularly on emotionally charged events or thoughts. Ask yourself, what hidden aspect of myself might this reaction reflect? Dream. Analysis. Start keeping a dream journal beside your bed. Record your dreams immediately upon waking. Look for recurring themes, symbols, or emotions. Jung believed these often represent messages from your unconscious, indicating areas needing attention or integration. Mindfulness and meditation. Incorporate daily mindfulness or meditation sessions. Start small, just 5 or 10 minutes, and gradually increase your practice. Focus on observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment, creating space to recognize and integrate your shadow aspects. Shadow dialogue. Engage in an imagined dialogue with your shadow. Ask questions like, what are you trying to tell me? Or, why am I resisting this truth? Write down your shadow's responses. This exercise helps bridge your conscious and unconscious minds. As you practice these steps, expect resistance. Jung emphasized that resistance is natural. The ego fears change and vulnerability. Remind yourself that discomfort means you're genuinely facing your shadow. Be patient, compassionate, and consistent in your efforts. Facing your shadow can bring up strong emotions: fear, shame, sadness, even anger. Jung advised accepting these emotions as natural and necessary for growth. Rather than pushing them away, explore and acknowledge them. This emotional honesty is integral to your healing and integration process. Signs of successful integration. How do you know when you're successfully integrating your shadow? Look for these signs: increased emotional stability and reduced reactivity. Improved relationships through greater empathy and reduced projection. Enhanced creativity and authenticity in your life. A stronger sense of personal purpose and meaning. Practicing these steps daily can transform your life profoundly. But what comes after integrating your shadow? How does embracing your hidden truths shape your overall journey? In our final part of this video, we'll explore life beyond deception, highlighting the profound changes that occur when you live authentically and fully aware. Remember Jung's encouraging words: one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. What happens when you finally begin to live without illusions? When your shadow is no longer hidden, but embraced? According to Carl Jung, this is where life truly begins, not in perfection, but in wholeness. This is the reward for facing your darkness, a life beyond deception. Once you've begun integrating your shadow, the illusions start to fall away. You stop seeing the world as a series of enemies or threats and begin recognizing it as a mirror, a constant reflection of your inner state. This doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it does become more real, more grounded, more meaningful. Instead of reacting out of fear or projection, you respond with clarity. You stop needing to prove yourself. Your emotional reactivity decreases, and your decisions become more aligned with your core values, not just your ego's needs. Most people operate in survival mode, protecting their image, defending their worldview, chasing safety. But individuation shifts you toward authenticity. You no longer build your life around avoiding pain or pleasing others. You begin making choices from a deeper place, your integrated self. This shift is subtle but profound. It's the difference between chasing a fantasy version of yourself and living as who you truly are. What does this look like day to day? You experience deeper connections with others because you're no longer projecting. You feel less dependent on external validation. You become less swayed by fear, manipulation, or social pressure. You develop a calm confidence, rooted not in ego, but in awareness. You feel more connected to life, not as something you need to control, but something you can participate in fully. This doesn't mean you become perfect, or that you never slip back into old patterns. Jung would be the first to remind us that the process of integration is lifelong. But it does mean that you're awake, you catch yourself faster, you know how to return to center, you no longer live in unconscious reaction. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to live in relationship with the mystery of existence. You stop needing to explain everything. You stop reducing life to black and white answers. You accept paradox, uncertainty, and nuance. This is true maturity. Carl Jung's teachings were never about escaping life or becoming some ideal version of yourself. They were about becoming whole. And wholeness only comes when you've embraced all of yourself, including the parts you were once afraid to see. So ask yourself now, what would life be like if you stopped running? If you looked directly at your fears, your flaws, your false beliefs, and chose to embrace them rather than fight them? What opens up when you're no longer deceiving yourself? That's the journey. That's the invitation. And that is what it means to become truly alive. Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Carl Jung.